Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com and the Pewter Report podcast. It is a Thursday edition of the show, the last of the week, and we are very, very close to training camp. It starts next week, so we only have a couple of Pewter Report podcast episodes remaining until we see the Bucs take the field once again. So we're going to share most of our time on today's episode doing a Q&A. So today's on you, Pewter people, as everyone starts filing in. If you have a question about the Bucs, if you have a question about the NFL, really anything, we're going to try to get to as many questions and comments as we possibly can today. And also, we're going to further break down a lot of the articles that have come out lately on PewterReport.com. So that's the agenda for today's show. So if you want to leave a question or comment, please go ahead, as Bat W starts off with Sup Bucs fans. And of course, Super Chats get to cut the line. As always, I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is my fellow colleague from PewterReport.com. He's on every Thursday. It is Adam Slavon. Adam, how we doing?
Matt, we're doing well. It's been a great Thursday so far, and really excited for the Pewter Report podcast today. It's always the best time of the day, and today it's up to the Pewter people with all the questions that I'm sure you guys will leave in the comments. Really excited to dive into them. And man, can you believe already 6 days away from training camp? It's like, I think it's the most exciting time of the year because all the guys you hear about all off season, all the rookies, the first time you get to see them in pads, and man, it's a great time, and it's a good time to be a Bucs fan in general. Positive outlook on the team, even though some Saints players may not think so.
Yeah, there's been some beef going on between the Bucs and the Saints for quite a while now. We will get to a story about that on today's show. And yeah, the summer, at least the summer that we're off until football returns, it's all about storylines and hype and really building things up. And then you finally see it play out. And some things live up to expectations, some things don't. Others exceed expectations.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the nice surprise of it all. It's like you may have your attention on one thing, and then before you even know it, that's old news, and you're kind of paying attention to whatever else the new story is. Hopefully it's more good than bad. Like, obviously, no one predicted when Ryan Jensen was going to get injured in training camp, and that was unfortunate. But at the same time, we didn't really think about a Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask quarterback competition, and Todd Bowles not playing Baker Mayfield at all in that preseason game against the Jets while still not declaring a starter at the same time. So, there's like current storylines, and then there's brand new storylines that will come about. And another reason why I love training camp specifically is, one, that the fans are there, and it makes for obviously not a full game atmosphere, but it brings an extra juice to what could be just a regular practice when the fans are involved and cheering plays. And it's fun seeing like Mike Evans interact with the fans, like in between plays or in between reps or whatever. He'll look over and point at a fan or, do whatever. And then also, like, we are as close to the plays as possible, and we get to see everything play out as well, where at practice, we're there for just the first about half an hour of practice. And it's a lot of calisthenics, special teams, and all that stuff. And I get why they don't want people to know like specific plays and game plans. But training camp, like, we see Mike Evans get the big touchdown down the field. We see an interception from Antoine Winfield.
He's running routes.
Yeah. So like, that's my excitement of why training camp is so much fun. And it kind of goes back to like when I played football, when there was like two-a-days and things like that. But yeah, it's a great time of the year for sure.
Yeah, and definitely, and even like the press conferences after, even though you're sitting in the sun for 2.5 hours, like just hearing the excitement from the players, the coaches, the different changes, especially with Liam Cohen and the new offense, there's going to be tons of excitement and real storylines from that emerging as well.
We got some comments already, which is great. 77water777 says, yeah, training camp. I like the attitude. Also, we have a great comment right away. By the way, if you want to super chat us, we will have you cut the line. We can't get to every single person, but I saw this one immediately and really liked it. Ryan S. 1997 says, hey guys, I'm from Northern Ireland, and I'm over in Florida on vacation. So excited to be going to the open session of camp next week. Ryan,
That's awesome.
super cool. Shout out that you're coming all the way from Northern Ireland. Shout out to Rory McIlroy. I think he's from Northern Ireland. He did not play well today at the British Open, but very cool. My grandma, who's still with us, is she was born in regular Ireland, but I got love for the Irish people for sure. So Ryan, hopefully we'll see you out at training camp, as he says. I don't know whether I'm more excited to see the players or see our own reporter Scott Reynolds in action. Ha ha. Well, you'll actually see all of us at training camp, and sometimes we travel in packs, like especially when it's and it's just offense versus defense, and there's only like one spot to watch. You'll see us all together. Sometimes you'll see us spread out, like if the defense is on one field and the offense is on another, depending on how many Pewter reporters are there that day. So please, whenever you see us, feel free to give us a shout out, whether you say Matty Diamonds or Sly or SR, whatever. We love saying hello and chatting with you guys for a bit. Definitely looking to seeing a lot of people out there. As Abraham Vatkincherry says, hope you guys will be there. I'm watching the practice on the 25th. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, we'll have Pewter reporters there every single day. Depending on who's going to be there. We do have a schedule, some built-in off days for everybody, because we are out there in the hot sun, and
it is a grind.
Land you for sure. It is a grind. Absolutely. But yeah, please say hello, and we are happy to oblige and chat about whatever you want. But the first thing I want to chat about this afternoon, Adam, when it comes to stories on pewterreport.com. And what I'll do is each topic that we're talking about, I will also put it in the chat. So if you haven't had a chance to see it just yet, throw it in there for everybody. This is a story that was published today. It actually came out today as well. This week we've been talking a lot about old school players and personnel, obviously, with Monty Kiffin unfortunately passing away, and we talked a lot about him on Monday. Tuesday's show, we talked a lot about who should be next to go into the Bucs Ring of Honor, and obviously these current players, a couple of players that have recently been on the team. But anyway, a story came out about the 2021 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which truly was a wild time. But to add to the wildness of it, Hall of Fame wide receiver Terrell Owens, T.O., as everybody knows him, who went into the Hall of Fame in 2018, famously played for the 49ers and the Eagles and the Cowboys. Those are his main teams, played for the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals as well. He went on the Bubba Dub show, which I apologize, I can't say I'm totally familiar with. But he says that he reached out to the Bucs and tried to reach out to Tom Brady through Randy Moss, who obviously Brady has a relationship with from
knows him pretty well.
His time, working with him with the Patriots. And he said he reached out to Randy Moss. I'll get the exact quote. He goes, Tom Brady ignored me. The year that AB, Antonio Brown, went crazy, they just needed somebody to fill some holes with AB leaving at the receiver position. I reached out to him through Randy Moss and some other people just to come in, play third down and red zone situations. This dude ignored me. It just shows you the lack of respect there. But when they get in front of you, they want to act like they respect you. So there's a lot of things to break down here. Again, the 2021 season, the Bucs did need wide receivers. Let's remember, Antonio Brown said peace in that Jets game with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. Absolutely one of the most wild things that ever happened on a football field. Bucs came back to win that game. And then 2 weeks before that was when Chris Godwin tore his ACL against the Saints, when there was that brutal injury on the hit over the middle. So Godwin was out for the year. So you were down your two of your top three wide receivers. After Mike Evans, you had Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller, Cyril Grayson Jr., who ended up catching the game-winning touchdown against the Jets, but then got injured like a week or two later. So could the Bucs have used T.O.? Potentially, but here's where it gets kind of crazy too. Terrell Owens last played in 2010 with the Bengals, and you know what? Still was kind of putting up numbers. Again, at 37 years old, he had over 900 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns. That's really good considering he was at the tail end of his career. Um, so T.O. being willing to come out of retirement because he tweeted at the Bucs literally. If you look at the timestamp of the tweet, it was at like 3:45, so it was seconds after Antonio Brown did what he did. He tweets at the Bucs, and then obviously everything he said. I don't know what T.O. could really do at this point. He would have been 48. It would have been unheard of in
Yeah.
the NFL for a player to not play for a decade and then come back and play for a team. Now, he does say with the caveat of, I would just do like third down and red zone and things like that. But just your overall thoughts on that part, and then we'll get to what he said about Tom Brady disrespecting him too. But just Adam, your thoughts about that whole situation?
Yeah, just a very wild situation that the Bucs were facing in 2021, missing so many of their top wide receivers after Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin. But looking at Terrell Owens, even though he was 48, there isn't like a doubt that he was in shape. I mean, he was posting workout videos. I think he ran the 40 against Tyreek Hill and ran like a 4.40, and he was in his mid 40s. I mean, that's impressive. And so looking at it, it's kind of like the argument I've seen whether Michael Jordan could still have played in the NBA when he was 50. And it's like he probably could have, but maybe as a role player. And that's kind of what Terrell's saying, and being on red zone packages, maybe third downs. I don't think he's going to be playing a lot of snaps where he's running and gunning down the field because he might pull a hamstring and then there you go. That's the end
Yeah.
of it. But with Mike Evans
What?
being a big red zone guy, I think T.O. could have had the same role, but I don't know. I could kind of see why Tom Brady, I don't think he ignored him. I think you said it was a bit of a stretch in the article, but
Yeah.
at the same time, the Bucs were open to bringing in these veteran players. That year, they brought in Le'Veon Bell, Richard Sherman,
Yes.
but the locker room was already kind of hurting after Antonio Brown and what that did ruffle feathers. Bringing in a guy like T.O., I don't know if that would ease things any.
Yeah, Terrell Owens obviously was a controversial figure. There's a number of incidents where, if you want to look it up, you can on Google or on his Wikipedia. It would have been a little bit different because it's like he's coming in. He's only been on the team for a week. I think it would be asinine for him to be like, "I got to get the football." Like we're only going to win if you get me the football. The Bucs did have a history, though, as you just pointed out, of bringing in older players. Now, not 47, 48-year-old players like Terrell Owens would have been, but LaShawn McCoy, like you said, Leonard Fournette the year before. Obviously, Gronk, but that was more because of his friendship with Tom Brady. Even Julio Jones, like in 2022. Like,
Yeah.
there is a pattern. Beasley as well was like an older guy that was a known name in other places. But yeah, I struggle with the idea that, like, I think TL would have been more like a Cole Beasley in terms of, hey, you
Right.
think you're getting the stud all-star player, but you're really just getting a shell of himself. What changes it a little bit is like the videos and the things that he's posted where, it's not like he's cooking Stephon Gilmore or someone like that. Like he's going up against his friends or, high school and college kids that don't play at like the top D1 schools. So, it would have been interesting to see because the Bucs did need help, and I do think if they beat the Rams, they go on to win the Super Bowl. We also have to remember that
Yeah.
Tristan Wirfs was injured in that game too. Now, to say that Tom Brady ignored him and he's disrespecting him, that's BS, and that goes back to the whole diva wide receiver thing. Because I'm thinking, like, I'm sure maybe at one point or another they were like, Tom, what about T.O. like later in the season? But Tom Brady has to focus on getting this team where they want to and need to be for the postseason. That Jets game was week 17. So they had like
Yeah.
one or two more games. Right? They had, one game left in the season because that game was on January 2nd. It's not like Brady could go and sit down and have like several discussions with him and be like, oh, this is how you're going to fit into the
Yeah.
offense. It was really just more out of desperation. So the part I don't like, and obviously it's a he said, and there's two sides and only one thing is the truth, but just like Tom Brady disrespecting him, I think that's kind of BS, but that's kind of to be expected with a guy that's known to be flashy and controversial.
For one thing, though, it sure would have been interesting. And like looking at it, like you mentioned, Julio Jones, kind of the similar build to T.O., about 6'3", 220 pounds. like Julio Jones was like 13 years younger when he was on the Bucs, and he was injured a lot and had injuries before that, but he wasn't productive in a role that maybe he could have had similar to T.O. And then the other side of it is like Jerry Rice, he played until he was 42 and he was somewhat productive. So it's like, could T.O. maybe have carved out a role? It really is a case of like, what if? But it would have been interesting to even see him get a workout. Like, and did he
Yeah.
still have it? I guess we'll never know, but fun to ponder.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to think about for sure. Let's get back on track with some comments and things of that nature. Want to say hello to where was it? Jeffrey McGee says Mississippi in the building. How's everybody doing? Just want to give a shout out that you're watching, across the United States. Obviously, we love our fans in Tampa, but it's great when we see people around as well. And I think we're doing great. It's Thursday. We're getting close to the weekend. Training camp is closer. So, yeah, shout out to you, Jeffrey, for the comment. Also, want to get to this one. We've spoken about it before, but happy to get into it again. Is Randy Gregory coming or not? So, that's been one of the storylines for minicamp and something we'll pay attention to for OTAs because, Adam, we have yet to see Randy Gregory in a Buccaneers uniform. That is why we have Randy Gregory in a 49ers uniform. And previously I said I won't talk about Randy Gregory until Randy Gregory is in a Bucs uniform, but there is an amendment to that if we're doing a Q&A episode and the show is about the fans and what the fans want. If you want to talk about Randy Gregory, we will talk about Randy Gregory. But so far, Adam, I haven't heard anything else about the Bucs cutting him just yet, because at this point, it wouldn't make much sense to cut him now when you have training camp a week away, unless they decide, oh, we want a different pass rusher. But this is another bit of an odd situation with him missing so much time and the lawsuit that's going on too.
Yeah, for sure. And ahead of training camp, you would have liked to see Randy Gregory obviously involved in some capacity out there on the field because it was already it wasn't a sure thing that he was going to make the roster. He came in a little bit later into the mix. And with so many young options at the position, I know you wrote about it in the biggest camp battle. It really is like a Royal Rumble at outside linebacker. These are guys that are going to be fighting for snaps at each spot. And when you look at the depth chart as of now, you have Yaya Diaby, Chris Braswell, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Anthony Nelson, Marquise Watts. Those are all guys that have been out there. They've been in the system, in the defense. This is a new player in Gregory coming in who hasn't played in Todd Bowles' defense. He doesn't know what it's like. So he's already behind. And the fact that he hasn't even been on the field yet, Matt, I don't think it's likely that he's with the Buccaneers this season. I mean, all signs point to him just kind of being cut before it even began.
Yeah, I can see him in training camp, and then he's just kind of not the player that he was expected to be. Because let's remember, like, Randy Gregory got traded from the Broncos to the 49ers because it just wasn't working out in Denver, and the 49ers just needed some depth at edge rusher. That's really the only reason why Randy Gregory didn't get cut from Denver versus being traded like he was, because they were able to find someone to take him off their hands. So I think Gregory's going to show up. I doubt he's going to talk to us really at all.
Yeah.
And what I think is going to happen is that he's going to perform in training camp, but I could see him being like in the first wave of cuts, probably the second wave of cuts. I know there was a little bit of money given to him, but a lot of it's incentive related. A lot of it is
how many games he plays,
performance based. Yeah, how many games, snaps, things like that. And because outside linebacker is one of the deepest depth positions for the Bucs this year, I think it's not like a good riddance type of thing, because obviously he's had some issues in his life, and I do want him to figure everything out. But if you're not going to be there, or if you're not going to show up in OTAs and minicamp and you're behind the eight ball, he's really got no one else to blame but himself. Like, that lawsuit aside with the NFL, like, that shouldn't really affect what he does with Tampa Bay. It has nothing to do with Tampa Bay, because all of his previous issues were with other teams. And, if he could somehow tap into that talent, that would be, really cool to see. Anyway, we got a super chat. And as you know, our rule, if you super chat us, we get to you ASAP. So right away, thank you to LDBC's Most
Thank you.
Wanted for this $4.99 super chat, who says the 2020 draft class has been Light's best, but what is his second best? The 2022 draft class for me has been great. No home runs, but lots of hits. All right, let's go through the Bucs draft history momentarily. Bucs. I mean, I know like a fair amount, but I'm not gonna
Yeah.
sit here and say I know every single one based on every single year. All right, draft history. All right, so Jason Light's first year was when he drafted Mike Evans. So 2014. It's not 2014. Mike is the best pick, but it's not 2014. 2015, like, all right, Jameis obviously didn't work out. And I will say, in defense of Jason Licht, like everyone that year was like, it's either Jameis or it's Marcus Mariota. So I hate
The
the
Bucs got
people
that
that
one
are
right.
I just hate the people that are like, oh, what were they thinking drafting Jameis? Like everybody was saying draft Jameis or draft
Yeah.
Marcus Mariota. So shut up with this revisionist history of what they should have done.
He wasn't as
'Cause
bad
hindsight's
as
always
like he
2020.
could have been either. Like he could have been
Yeah,
a
I mean,
complete bust. Like he was a
he
starting
wasn't.
quarterback.
He wasn't good, but he wasn't like awful Jamarcus Russell level of a bust.
Yeah.
Anyway, that year you had Donovan Smith in year two, round two, and Ali Marpet also in round two. Quan Alexander obviously, went on to a couple different teams, but that was a solid pick. 2016 was a dud. Vernon Hargraves, Noah Spence, Roberto Aguayo.
Oof.
2017 is interesting as well. Justin Evans was really good until he got hurt. Chris Godwin goes without saying. OJ Howard, again, a little bit of a disappointment just with the overall injury history of him. 2018, good run for Jason Light's own money. Vita Vea in round one, Rojo in round two, MJ Stewart in round two, also in round two, Carlton Davis. So you hit with Carlton Davis, not so much with MJ Stewart. Rojo was on the Super Bowl winning team. Round three, Alex Kappa. Round four, Jordan Whitehead. Justin Watson, who was a pretty good special teams player and contributor in round five. Jack Sitchie, who was solid, but again got hurt all the time in round six. 2019, Devin White, SMB, Jamel Dean, Mike Edwards, Anthony Nelson, Matt Gay, Scotty Miller, Terry Beckner.
That's underrated.
2020, like we talked about. 2021, obviously JTS, Kyle Trask. 2022 and last year's draft class, I think it's a little bit too early to be like, this one's great, but 2022 has a good run. Logan Hall obviously needs to step up, but Luke Gedeke, Rashad White, and Kate Otten, and Jake Camarda, and Zion, that's pretty good. So I'm going to say right now, and Adam, feel free to agree or disagree. In no particular order, I'd say 2020, the top three outside of obviously the 2020 class would be 2022, I would say 2018, and probably 2019. I think those are like the top three.
Yeah.
If I have to pick one, man, he went on a good run between 2018, 2019, and 2020.
He's cooking.
I think I'm going to say 2018 because you got Vita, obviously, who's still with the team. Whitehead is back, but obviously you saw what he did. And Carlton was your number one corner who you traded him because of money more than performance. So I'm going to say 2018, but very good question. A good discussion as well, as JB says 18 takes it for me. Matthew Sam's kind of in agreement, says the year he got all those cornerbacks and Whitehead was a great year. Yep, that's 2018. So, yeah, great question. Thanks again to LDBC's Most Wanted. Yeah, sorry, Adam. Go ahead.
It would be a debate between 2022 and 2018. Just with 2022, the amount of volume of quality starters, like guys that are going to be even taking a bigger step this year, like Zion McCollum, if he becomes like perhaps the top cornerback, Kate Otten's a starting tight end, Rashad White, running back, Luke Gedeke, the right tackle. I mean, Jake Camarda could be a Pro Bowl punter. I mean, that is a really good class. So I would go with 2022, but 2018, you mentioned like Vita Vea, you got all the quality like defensive backs. That one's a really solid class too. So it'd be a debate. I'd probably give it to 2022 though.
Yeah, it's a little apples to oranges, right? Because 2022, it still very much feels like, as Natasha Bedingfield once said, the rest is still unwritten. Like, there's still many chapters to go with that draft class where at this point, like, we know what the deal is with Vita Vea. We know what the deal is with Jordan Whitehead. There's chapters are still being written because they still have time spent with the Buccaneers, but they're way more established just because they're older and they've been in the league longer. But it's a great discussion for sure. Maybe next year's offseason, the podcast will have a debate about it. But let's get back to the article topics. Talking about draft picks, we're going to talk about the first ever draft pick by Jason Licht, of course, was Mike Evans. And Mike Evans finally gets some praise as in a top 10 ranking. This was actually a top 20 ranking, but he got within the top 10. This was on the 33rd team's website in an article by Jeff Diamond. He ranked the top 20 players over the age of 30 entering the 2024 season. Mike Evans is 30 right now. He'll be 31 on August 21st, so a little over a month to go before Mike enters his Mike Piazza year. And so he ended up, and I put the article in there as well, Mike ended up 6th on this list. The general consensus and the written part being, in his 10th season since joining the Buccaneers as their 2014 first-round pick, Mike is tied for the NFL lead with 13 receiving touchdowns last season. He tied that with Tyreek Hill, of course. Then it goes on to say, let's show a little love to Mike as well. There's Mike.
Yeah, and the crazy goal.
Goes on to say he had his 10th straight season with over 1,000 receiving yards, an NFL record for a player to start his career. Evans also earned his 4th Pro Bowl selection, and it was the 2nd season in which he's been named second-team All-Pro. Evans helped Bucs quarterback Baker Mayfield revive his career in another division-winning season for the team. The only players ahead of him, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Trent Williams, Tyreek Hill, and number 1 on the list is Chris Jones, the Chiefs defensive tackle. I honestly have no problem with this. I think the guys in front of him are, deserving of it. I think Mike at 6 is very fair. But what I think is important too, Adam, I kind of wrote about it in the story. There's still a lot for Mike to play for. Obviously, he wants to win another Super Bowl, but individually, there's still more like stats and records and accolades that he can still reach, as including this season.
Yeah, if he has like 2 1,000-yard seasons after this one, he's going to climb that receiving yards leaderboard, and he really has a chance by the time he retires, depending on how long he keeps that going, to enter in the top 5. When it comes to touchdowns, we mentioned Terrell Owens before. Mike Evans, he's on the verge, if he hasn't already, in passing him. And looking at Evans' whole career, he's really just been one of the most underrated wide receivers in football, just based on his level of consistency. And ESPN also did a recent ranking of the top 10 receivers. They put Evans at 8. And the consistency is a reason why. I mean, he's just been so good for so long. You can't bet against him not continuing that this season. When you look at last season with Baker Mayfield, he turned back the clock in a lot of ways. And Mike doesn't look like he's 30. Lavonte doesn't look like he's 34. They're playing like they're 5-10 years younger. And for Mike Evans, he's just been a true model of what you want a receiver to be. And looking at the ranking, it's actually a little bit surprising he ranks 6th because they placed Matthew Stafford 10th, Dak Prescott 11th, and Devontae Adams 14th. Those are 3 players that have just as much of an argument to be where Mike Evans is. So it isn't rare a Bucs player gets that amount of respect, but shout out to Mike. And even though he's 30, he's surely not showing it.
Of course. And yeah, I think it was especially stood out with Devontae Adams, as you just mentioned, because they're obviously both wide receivers, and it's a little bit easier to compare that than, a wide receiver from one team and a quarterback from another team. And, you mentioned obviously, some of the accolades that that Mike can continue to achieve and moving up the ranks of all-time receiving yards, there's still one more Bucs record that he could break, and that's the most catches in a regular season. He can actually break two because there's most catches in the regular season and then most catches in an entire season. So Keyshawn Johnson has the Bucs regular season record for catches in a year. Chris Godwin, when he returned from his ACL injury in 2022, has the all-time catches record for the Bucs because he had 104 in the regular. So Keyshawn Johnson had 106 in 2001. Godwin had 104 in 2022, but then the one playoff game that they had when the Bucs lost to the Cowboys, Godwin had 10 catches in that game. So ended up with 114 on the season. So I don't know if Mike will get 114 catches when it's all said and done this year, just based on the talent that the Bucs have. But I think having the single season receptions record is another thing that Mike can add to his repertoire. And then, of course, if he gets 1,000 yards this year, he will tie Jerry Rice for just most consecutive seasons of 1,000 yards. Not to begin a career, but just consecutive seasons of 1,000 yards, because Jerry Rice did it in his second year in the NFL and did it for 11 years in a row. So that's another record that Mike Evans can break, or at least tie. And then if he does it next year, 12 straight seasons, maybe then and only then Mike Evans will finally get some more recognition. Because on that same list, while I agree a ton with where Mike was placed, Bill Vincent is asking, was Lavonte David on the list? No, Bill Vincent, he was not. And as soon as I read the list, and overall, I do think it's a good article. Yeah. As soon as I read the list, I said, there's no Lavonte David, which Lavonte, I believe, is 34 right now. So he would have been tied with Justin Tucker and I believe one other player on that list. And Lane Johnson and Bobby Wagner, of course. Yeah. All for oldest age. Actually, Matthew Stafford was 36, but second oldest age. And it hurts a little bit, too, because Bobby Wagner comes in at 12, and C.J. Mosley, the Jets linebacker, comes in at 16. So it's like, damn, how do you have those linebackers, but you don't have Lavonte David on the list, especially with all due respect to Justin Tucker? I mean, he's one of the greatest kickers of all time, and in my opinion, should be a Hall of Famer. Yeah. But, like, how do you have a kicker over Lavonte David? You know, like, that is disrespectful. That is very disrespectful. So that was frustrating to see, although I agree with a lot of the list. That was a little bothersome for sure.
And at this point in their careers, Bobby Wagner probably he's a more accomplished linebacker, maybe has some more decorated career when it's all said and done. But Lavonte David at this point, he's a better player than Bobby Wagner. I think Wagner's making the list based on his accomplishments rather than where he is currently. So
I agree. And I like this comment. I just put it up a moment ago. Matthew Sams, great first name. Matthew says, LD has always been overlooked. He gets some love nowadays. Not enough, though. I agree. I mean, he's like Baker Mayfield was on part of my take. That was very cool. I mean, he was showing a lot of love for both Mike and Lavonte David. But, yeah, it's not enough. It's not enough. No. And I also want to show some love to Celsius Energy Drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com and the Pewter Report podcast. Even though we're a little down this second because Lavonte David's not on the top 20 over the age of 30 list, having a Celsius Energy can really help you get up. And we do try to keep the vibes very high on this show. So check out the vibe flavors like the Cosmic Galaxy and Astro. I like the tropical. My favorite is the Arctic Vibe. So there's so many great flavors of Celsius. There's no sugar. It's gluten-free as well. It's an excellent kickstarter to the morning. Maybe you want something a little bit different than coffee. You can do a Celsius. If you know where to find a Celsius energy drink, head on over to the Celsius store locator on their website. Punch in their address, and it'll tell you the closest geographical location where you can pick one up. Might be a Walmart, health and fitness store, a 7-Eleven, or could be your bodega.
Bodega.
And once you keep going to your bodega and you know you love Celsius and you want more and you want to get it in bulk, you can buy it in bulk over on Amazon. Do the subscribe and save. Get that variety pack because there's so many awesome flavors of Celsius. They're amazing, and variety is the spice of life. So try them all over on Amazon. You could set up when you get it sent to your residence. You're in charge. You're the captain. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of the Pewter Report podcast. All right, let's get into another article, Adam, that was actually written by you talking about the nickel corner, starting nickel corner last year. Will he get the starting job this year? Not known just yet, but Christian Izien.
Yeah.
What's the outlook on Christian Izien as we head into training camp?
That's a great question, Matt, and I'm glad you brought up that story. So when you look at Christian Izien, what I wrote as a headline is he being forgotten about in the defensive back picture? Because you look at the secondary as it stands. You have the two safety spots solidified, Jamel Dean and Zion McCollum being the two outside corners. And it looks like Tykee Smith kind of has that inside track to be the nickel back. Where does that leave Christian Izien? Izien had a solid rookie season last year. He had 65 total tackles, really graded out well in run defense. And then also the first 2 weeks of the season, don't forget he had that interception near the goal line in the Vikings game where he kind of pried that ball from KJ Osborne. That was a big play. And even took a big hit from Justin Jefferson after. And then followed that up with another interception the week after. And you're like, man, this guy's a stud. The Bucs got another undrafted gem. And although he might have hit a rookie wall midseason, overall, he still performed very well and quite admirably for being a rookie in Todd Bowles' defense and really handling it well. And then all of a sudden you look at this year, it's like, where's he going to play? And I think his talent still does play and will have a role, but it might be kind of in more versatile ways at maybe spotting at safety. At corner, even though he's 5'8", he has a 40-inch vertical and runs a 4.4. I mean, that has value, and he's so physical and so pesky that I think he could still play as a corner. And then also, you look at how Todd Bowles uses players creatively. Maybe inside linebacker. I know we've talked about inside linebacker being a platoon with Servassier Dennis and KJ Britt. If there's no role for Izien, why can't he be in on third downs as maybe a sub linebacker every once in a while? When I look at Izien, I think he is talented enough to play multiple positions. And with that, I think he's the most versatile defensive back on the Bucs roster this year. And I think he's going to have a role because Tykee Smith looks likely to be the nickelback.
Yeah, I'm respectfully going to disagree about him playing linebacker. He's just too small. Like, I get it. He's physical and he is strong, and I love the hustle. I just think he's too small. Now, if you want to have a discussion about him being like a money backer, kind of like Deion Buchanan, more with the Cardinals,
like hybrid.
The Bucs kind of tried it out. Yeah, if you want to say like hybrid, I can get down with that, but not like a traditional inside linebacker. Side note, have you watched the Netflix show Receiver?
I've not yet. I'm really looking forward to that.
Okay, so for those who don't know, last year there was a show on Netflix called Quarterback, and it goes behind the scenes of the lives of Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota. It was a great show, but understandably, a ton of quarterbacks didn't want to do it because, you know, they're very focused on a lot of things. So this year they did wide receiver, and it's Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So when they were doing Justin Jefferson, I was very excited because I thought they were going to show like week 1 against the Vikings.
Yeah.
And I want to see the Christian Izien interception, but I also kind of wanted to see when Justin Jefferson leveled him on the play. And they just completely skipped week 1. I was so mad over that. And then the time that they did show the Bucs was with Amon-Ra St. Brown when he had the big touchdown against the Bucs in the creamsicle game and Carlton Davis got blocked, you know, pretty badly on the play. So I was like, damn, like we missed a good Bucs moment, only to see a bad Bucs moment. But anyway, Izien, I think a lot of people are a little harsh on Christian Izien in terms of, well, he only got 2 interceptions in the beginning of the year and then didn't get another turnover the rest of the year. Like, dude or girl, like Jamel Dean didn't have an interception last year. Carlton Davis, I think, had 2. So, like,
Yeah.
why are we knocking an undrafted free agent rookie for having 2 interceptions off the bat, but not getting as much on the case about some of the other people? Like, outside of Antoine Winfield Jr., who really stood out in the secondary? I guess you could say Zion McCollum, but Zion McCollum dropped some interceptions as well. So I think it's a bit harsh to be like, well, Izien was only good for half of the year. He is undersized. There is
Yeah.
a reason that he's an undrafted free agent, but you make a great point about the 4.4 speed. Like, that's what you want from the nickel corner. I think he's going to have a role on this team. Do I think he's going to start? No. I think it will go to Tykee Smith, but I think that speaks a lot more to just the level of greatness that Tykee Smith can reach
Yeah.
versus like the limitations of Christian Izien. We've seen, I mean, injuries happen, especially in the secondary, all the time. Christian Izien's going to have a role on this team. It's just not really defined just yet. And I don't know if Todd Bowles knows like what is defined for Christian Izien either, because he cross trains a couple of guys. Like, in an odd way, I can see Christian Izien, maybe not this season, but kind of be an upgraded version of what D. Delaney was for the Bucs over the
Yeah.
past couple of years. And D. Delaney's in Buffalo now with the Bills, but like, he could play safety. You throw him in the slot. Maybe he plays outside corner for like a preseason game, so you just kind of get him experience everywhere in the Bucs defense. If Christian Izien isn't starting, it's a good thing, not because of poor play by Christian Izien. It's a good thing because either Tavier Thomas or Tykee Smith absolutely dominated. And overall, that's good news.
Yeah, for sure. And I really like the point that you made with Izien potentially being that new D Delaney, because Delaney, he left in the offseason, and the defense is kind of missing that guy that can spot everywhere, maybe is a jack of all trades, but not that long-term starter. When you look at Izien, I think he could carve out a long-term role in the NFL, but as you said, it might just be kind of playing in a pinch everywhere. I think that has a lot of value in and of itself. And the nickel position, with it being such a pass-driven league, that has a lot of value.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's able to play there, it speaks volumes.
It speaks a lot of volumes for sure. So, guys, still feel free to ask away with questions in this Bucs Q&A. Still have a little more time left, so we're happy to get to whatever if you want to talk about the Bucs, maybe certain storylines, training camp battles that you're getting into. We're happy to really chat about anything with the Bucs. As Bat W says, I'm not sold on Tykee. I didn't think he deserved to be a 3rd-round pick, and all the love you give him makes no sense to me. Let him prove it on the field. Well, I mean, I think that's the case with really any rookie. You fall in love with like the potential and the skill set and the traits. I think Tykee Smith, I thought that was a great pick. So we disagree there,
Yeah.
but that's fine. We agree to disagree. That's sports in general. Everyone has their opinion. I don't think either of these are necessarily a hot take, but the fact that he can blitz, he is physical, he's strong, and he can take the ball away, and he comes from an NFL style of defense. That's why I
Yeah.
really like Tykee Smith. And he was making plays in practice as well. Now, it'll be very different with Baker and Mike and Chris and everything like that. But I think Tykee Smith's been off to a pretty good start.
Yeah, and Nick Rapone this offseason, John Spytek, they've both spoken very highly on Tykee Smith. And obviously they do because they're Bucs coaches in front office. But when you look at it, Tykee Smith, he's coming from one of the most NFL-ready college programs at Georgia, where they produce so many NFL defenders. He had a lot of production in that secondary, kind of filling that star role. He played at nickel there, played at safety at West Virginia. So he's very versatile, has a high football IQ because he's the starting guy for the Georgia Bulldogs. And then he also produced. He had 4 interceptions last year, was a solid tackler, and he's a little bit bigger than Christian Izien, as you mentioned, physical. I think all those things put together, like at this point in the season, when you're waiting for training camp, there's no reason not to be excited about what his potential role could be. And I think that's what you're looking for, is that potential in that ceiling. And I think Tykee Smith has a bit more than Christian Izien in that regard.
Right. Christopher Cole says, none of them even have a championship. Where's Evans or Godwin? Oh, wait, they aren't flashy enough for divas. Man, I love my Buccaneers wide receivers. Appreciate the comment. Maybe I missed like the beginning of the conversation in the chat, but Who are you referring to when you say none of them? Are you talking about the top 30 list? If you want to clarify, I'm happy to discuss further. But yeah, Bucs fans should love their Buccaneers wide receivers, and I think Bucs fans love their wide receivers almost as much as they hate the Saints. And as we learned recently, the Saints hate the Bucs just as much, really. I'm a big fan of the podcast. Part of my take, that's with Big Cat, Dan, Big Cat Cats, and PFT commenter. That was the one where Baker Mayfield did the interview with them. They were all at Lake Tahoe at the celebrity golf event. Baker didn't do well, but again, like, he's not a pro golfer. He's a pro football player. But anyway, so Derek Carr went on the show and was asked about the Bucs-Saints rivalry and all that stuff. And let me get the comments. He goes on to say, it didn't take me long to understand the rivalry, because literally they talk about the Bucs and the Falcons, I believe talking about the fans. I was like, well, what about the Panthers? But the Falcons and the Bucs in our building and around town, there's a real hatred. For some Southern, really kind people, they really hate those teams. I thought that was funny. And then he started talking about the Mike Evans, Marshawn Lattimore, obviously rivalry, which we've highlighted a ton throughout the years, especially with Marshawn. Carr said, with Lattimore, Lat's competitive, so him and Mike, they be getting after it. I think there's some deep personal stuff there where people are just like, I just hate that man. When we come in that week and you're like, all right, Marshawn, you've got Mike. It's like he's just blackout for 5 days. You're like, oh, he'll be ready on Sunday. It just speaks to the long timeline. This was an article from Bailey Adams, and Bailey did a great job kind of talking about how the Saints view them, like Saints players such as Cameron Jordan. Oh, Christopher Call, I got you. I'll get to that in a second. Like Cam Jordan says, oh, there's there's not a rivalry going on, but then he'll trash the Bucs in like every single interview and any single time he's got a camera in front of him. So yeah, I mean, Cameron Jordan's just wrong, and he sounds silly when he's like, "There's not a rivalry," but then all you do is try to clown on the Bucs, and then the Bucs end up clowning the Saints in the biggest moment. It's funny because Derek Carr, I get why Bucs fans should hate him. I think he's overall a likable person. He just plays for the team that the Bucs have to go out and destroy every single time.
Yeah, like when he was on the Raiders, you're kind of rooting for Derek Carr. Seems like a very likable guy, but now the tables have turned, and he's adding fuel to the fire that has really ignited in the past few seasons when you look at the Saints and the Bucs. And while Carlton Davis and Michael Thomas aren't in the picture anymore, like that battle, there's still the Marshawn Lattimore, Mike Evans battle. And like he said it, I thought it was a funny quote when he's like, he blacks out for 5 days and then he's just ready to go. Like, I think that's really interesting. And then also his comment about in our building and around town, there's a real hatred. Like, man, when you look at the Saints and Bucs matchups, even though the Saints, I think on paper, probably project to be third in the division, that game against them and the Bucs is going to be a bloodbath because all these players are coming out vocally and saying just how much of a rivalry it is. And it'll be interesting what Cam Jordan has to say next about it not being a rivalry, because very much so it is.
There's no question about it. And it makes all the NFC South games way more interesting, I think, this year, because the Falcons are going to be just as competitive as they've really ever been since really 2020. Like essentially when Bruce Arians came in 2019, but when Brady got there in 2020, really since the Bucs have been a good football team, the Falcons have never even come close. Then obviously we know the back and forth between the Bucs and the Saints. So between the Falcons having the best team they fielded since the Bucs started this playoff run, and the Saints still chirping, even though there's no reason that they should be chirping, it makes those games way more exciting. By the way, Christopher Cole, thank you for clarifying with the Netflix show. I don't know who Netflix reached out to. It makes sense. Like, Justin Jefferson's the best wide receiver in the league. Lavonte Adams is a well-established receiver. Obviously, Kittle and Debo are two of the best in the league, and the 49ers are a really good team. I understand none of them have a Super Bowl just yet. And same with Amon-Ra St. Brown, but a lot of them play for really good teams. For all we know, they asked Mike or Chris and they said no. That wouldn't shock me too, because remember, Mike was in a contract year. I'm sure all he wanted to focus on was playing well and obviously getting that contract. And who knows if Chris Godwin would even be interested in it. You can only, I mean, you want to get people that are marketable, which I'm not saying Mike and Chris aren't, but I'm just saying like Justin Jefferson clearly is, Debo clearly is. So it's kind of a give and take of like, you need marketable people and you also need those that will agree to do it. So for all we know, Mike and Chris got asked and they just didn't want to.
What's interesting is that Debo and Kittle both did it, and they're both on the same team. Like it's might be a little overkill. Like they could have told both of their stories with just and like had another slot open. But
yeah, I agree. But I think that comes down to, well, this guy said no, that guy said no, that guy said no. Are we going to get like a second tier tight end? Like, are we going to get a Evan Ingram, or are we going to get George Kittle? I think the answer is kind of easy with Evan Ingram. I guess it's a little bit different because quarterback, it's like, well, Marcus Mariota was kind of on the tail end of his career. But that's the way that Netflix decided to go. And still a pretty good show. I'm about like halfway through. But anyway, like we were talking about, Bucs Falcons is going to be a ton of fun this year. I know I'm excited to bet on all those games too. And of course, you can go and bet on the Bucs or whoever you want to with mybookie.ag. Sign up for the app using the promo code Pewter, that's Pewter, and get a first deposit bonus when you sign up. It's free money in your account. So even if you learn from Plants in your Math, you know that is a heck of a deal when you're getting free money. You still got baseball's about to start up, I believe, tomorrow. They just had the All-Star break. Soccer's done, but the Olympics are right around the corner. You can bet on the Olympics. And then before you know it, college football returns, followed by the NFL. So there's going to be a lot of great props and parlays that you can do. I'll be sending out my picks really every Saturday for college football, but then more specifically for the Bucs, their games, some player props as well. And there's a great place to do it over at mybookie.ag with the promo code Pewter. And make sure to check out their online casino as well. It's not always easy to get to the actual physical casino, but you can still play all the fun games like craps and baccarat and blackjack and roulette, all from the comfort of your own home with their online casino. So check out mybookie.ag, get those bets in, and use the promo code Pewter. That's Pewter. All right, so another question in the comments from Deep Blue S550. Who says, I know KJ Britt is set to start opposite Lavonte, but who do you guys think could have a sneaky chance to beat out KJ? That's a really good question, Deep Blue.
Yeah.
Adam, why don't you go first?
I think when you look at it, Servassier Dennis would have the sneaky chance to beat out KJ. I think last year he was impacted a little bit by his injury early on in the preseason. But when he did play, he played against the Colts. I thought he played pretty well and also has really plus coverage abilities and also is a blitzer. And those are two things that Todd Bowles really values, really from any position. I mean, you see Antoine Winfield Jr. coming around the edge. At inside linebacker, I think Servassier Dennis has a good blend of just all-around play and having a high football IQ. I think more so than the other linebackers in the room. And with that, I think he would have the best chance of unseating KJ.
Yeah, I agree. I think Servassier Dennis has the quickest immediate path to get a starting role, especially because he was a draft pick for the team. I think Kalen DeLoach has a sneaky dark horse possibility to be an impact player for the Buccaneers. In what capacity, I'm not sure just yet, but I think he's got the best amount of like athleticism and intangibles that you see in a player, even though he was an undrafted free agent. But I'm going to pick J.J. Russell just for the fact that he had some of that starting experience last year when guys were out. So he has that role. He's a guy that fights his ass off every single year just to make the team. So he's kind of dealt with pressure in several different ways that Servassier Dennis just hasn't dealt with yet. And Kalen DeLoach is going through it right now. But I'm going to say J.J. Russell just based on, Todd Bowles tends to gravitate towards certain guys. And I think J.J. Russell is one of them. Like Mike Green, he always talks about the defensive tackle who just got engaged the other day. So congratulations to Mike Green. There's certain like backup guys that Todd Bowles seems to be fond of, and J.J. Russell is one of them. So I'm going to pick J.J. Russell, although I don't think you're wrong with the Tarase Dennis selection.
And I
Let's
really
get to
like.
two. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say Russell is an underdog story because whenever like last preseason he balled out. When he started against the Panthers, he did really well. It seems like whenever he gets an opportunity, he plays really well, and that's why he's been on the Bucs roster, even at the end of the roster each season.
Yeah, that is true. Matthew Sams asking anything on the Wirfs contract. We have reached out behind the scenes. No new news. I feel like what's that show? New Heights? New news, as they say. Nothing new to report just yet. Talks will resume next week when training camp gets going. I still would not be worried about Tristan Wirfs signing an extension with the Buccaneers. I wouldn't be shocked if it turns out that Wirfs is quote unquote sitting in practice where he's not participating until an extension is signed. But it's not going to be a case where he doesn't play this season because of the contract. He's lifting with the guys in the offseason. He was at OTAs, did not participate, but he was at OTAs. Tristan loves the Bucs. The Bucs love Tristan. We've seen it time and time again, whether it was Antoine Winfield Jr. or Baker or Mike Evans. The Bucs end up getting it done. Sometimes it just takes a little bit more time. So nothing to report just yet. Talks are tabled right now, but they'll resume next week. And just keep a lookout. It may not happen first week of training camp. It may not happen until Labor Day weekend, but
right.
It'll be okay. I promise. I promise that. And last but not least, Jeff the Champ says, does Pewter Report ever do fantasy leagues for fans and Pewter Report? We've done some like sponsorship things with, best bets and drafting guys for best ball, things like that. We haven't done like a true blue fantasy football league just yet. If there's enough interest, I'm happy to do it because, again, we love the fans and we want to do what's best for you guys. I know I do a knockout pool with my friends every year. So if there's some Pewter people that want to do that as well, or a survivor pool, I guess I should say, where each week you pick one team and you keep going until like everyone has a team that got eliminated. So if anyone's interested in that, feel free to reach out to me on my social media at Matty4_Matera or email me at matt@pewterreport.com. I'm certainly open to it, but it depends on how interested people would be. Feel free to reach out to Adam as well. Adam, why don't you plug your social media?
Yeah, so my X handle is Adam Lives On, Adam Livson, and then my email is adamliveson01@gmail.com. So definitely reach out to me as well. And Pewter people and fantasy leagues, that sounds like a good time. So I would definitely be down for that.
Yeah, it's always a good time too when you're being happy and healthy, and obviously your health is very important. So you want to make sure that's right. You want to work with the best people, which of course is Christopher Lugo and the Bay Area Modern Medical Center. Are you tired of feeling like just another number in the waiting room? At Bay Area Modern Medical in Tampa, we believe you deserve personalized care that puts your health and well-being first. Meet Christopher Lugo. He has over 24 years of medical expertise. As a primary care provider, he's dedicated to your overall health. But that's not all. Christopher specializes in weight loss, anti-aging, and hormone replacement therapy. That includes testosterone treatments for both men and women. So men, listen up. Testosterone treatments can be affordable. Don't let age slow you down. Reclaim your vitality and get back to feeling great. Turn back the clock with the consultation at Bay Area Modern Medical Center today. You can visit BAMMC.com to explore their range of testosterone and weight loss treatments. The difference is Christopher practices concierge medicine. So that means no more waiting rooms, no rushing through appointments. Imagine a doctor who actually takes the time to go over your extensive lab results, discusses your diet and exercise plan, and provides personalized vitamin and supplement recommendations to optimize your health. You can get same-day appointments as well for your convenience. Pewter Report Scott Reynolds, also a satisfied patient. He can't recommend Bay Area Modern Medical Center enough. So book your appointment today at BAMMC.com or call them at 844-789-2266. That's 844-789-2266. Bay Area Modern Medical Center, where your health is their priority. All right, guys, it's been a great episode, and we are happy to announce with training camp coming up next week, just for next week, we're going to have 5 episodes. So Monday through Friday, we're doing 5 episodes of the Pewter Report podcast to really kick off the 2024 season with a bang. On Monday's show, we're going to be joined by a very special guest. Bucs running back Chase Edmonds is joining the show. So we're going to have him on, talk about, obviously, Rachaad White and Bucky Irving and his own role in the offense, and, of course, the outlook for the 2024 season. That is Monday's show. And then Tuesday's show, it's a preview. Bucs training camp begins. Well, Tuesday will be our preview show. Wednesday, training camp starts. So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is all about practice. We talk about practice, Allen Iverson. Training camp begins on Wednesday, and we will break down every single practice on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So just to recap one more time, Monday's show, Chase Edmonds is joining. Tuesday is a training camp preview, and then practice is full steam ahead. We will break down every practice this week on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So that's the schedule with training camp returning. All right. If you're not already doing so, please follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report. Our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below as well. Really doesn't matter what it is. Guys, let's get excited. Training camp is back next week. So
already.
Let's get after it. Let's go. Training camp. So for Adam Slavon, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching. Have a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.